Mick Jenkins, The Patience album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this latest album from Mr. Mick Jenkins, Chicago-based MC, who in his early days, overnight became one of my favorite figures in underground rap and hip-hop. I mean, his breakout mixtape, The Waters, it's probably one of my favorite breakout mixtapes, and just mixtapes in general over the last 10 years. This thing may be long, but it is jam-packed and just flooded, pun intended, with just increasingly conceptual bars, big thoughts, just really introspective lyrics, some really great features as well. And I just love the jazzy, hazy aesthetic. It just seemed like a thinking man's rap record with a lot of great beats, production, and performances. Also, the EP he dropped shortly after, I thought really did just seal the deal for him. Like, I overnight was a Mick Jenkins fan. Now, in the years since, I don't want to say that, like, I've loosened my thoughts on Mick, but it's definitely been a little bit more hit and miss. Like, his follow-up album, The Healing Component, I was so hyped for this thing, and I still think it's got a lot of great material on there, some really great singles and performances. But overall, the concept this time around, I thought was, I don't know, a lot more loose, a lot more bloated even, dare I say preachy at times, especially in the spoken word interludes. And his follow-up to that, Pieces of a Man, I thought it was just okay. I mean, it wasn't bad, wasn't great either, had some cool jazzy moments, but overall, I was just sitting here thinking to myself, you know, what happened to this guy? You know, why am I not as excited about what he's doing these days? And if that wasn't bad enough, his Circus EP that dropped in, I think, early 2020, God, I thought this thing was crap. I thought this was easily the worst thing that Mick had put out. So much so that I completely disregarded his next album. Yeah, 2021's Elephant in the Room, I didn't even review it. I didn't even listen to it until, God, months after it came out. And, you know, I still hadn't listened to it, you know, at full length until a couple of months ago. And I'm kind of pissed that I waited too long because it's not perfect. It's definitely spotty in parts. But seeing Mick kind of take his, you know, thoughts away from these gigantic concepts that, I don't know, I just feel like they weren't working for him as much anymore, just seemed refreshing to me. This was easily some of his more refreshing and just, I don't know, inspired tracks in quite some time, which leads me to this new album, The Patience. And leading up to this thing, I had a lot of hope. And while this album is not perfect, and we're certainly not back to where we were with The Waters with Mick, I think this is the strongest album that he's put out since. You know, I should start out by saying this is by far Mick's most trimmed down, short and sweet projects. I mean, for a while there with The Waters and THC, you know, he was pushing albums over an hour in length. And while it worked in some cases, it also led to some really just tough to listen to albums moments as well. This album, on the other hand, is 11 tracks and a slim, trim 28 minutes. Most of these tracks don't even push the 3-minute mark. Michelin star starts this album off, and right off the bat, it's super, super classy. The jazzy beat and the dusty production, that's one thing. But then Mick comes in with this seriously fiery performance. I haven't heard him this aggressive ever. I mean, even on my projects that I've enjoyed from him the most and his features that I've really loved from him, he's been more of a low-key, laid-back hip-hop artist, and that's fine. Like, when he does it well, he does it great, but here, he is much more aggressive, much more energetic, and he stays that way for the entire album. It's short, it's sweet, it's soulful, it's awesome, as is Show and Tell featuring Freddie Gibbs. And I will say this now, spoiler alert, the production and the beats throughout this entire album are pretty flawless. I actually think from a production stance, this is one of the best hip-hop records of the year. This track is a little bit more tense, a little bit more dramatic. It's also a little dark, and it gets a little darker as this album rolls on, but Mick continues to be as fired up and pissed off and aggressive, and I love that. But what makes this album work as much as it does is he hasn't missed a beat as far as his very wordy, introspective bars go. Nothing comes off preachy, and he's still just a thinking man's dude. And yeah, I'll take a Freddie Gibbs feature any day of the week. And you know, he's been killing it lately. He's been dropping some great albums. He's been doing awesome features. But then I hear this, and this is one of the best features I've heard from him in a long time. The guy's breath control is out of this world. Also, really do love Sitting Ducks featuring Benny the Butcher. I mean, I love this very dreamy, rainy day rap aesthetic. You know, I always dig that. Check out the Billy Woods album if you haven't already. But Mick does really good on it, dropping some seriously introspective bars once again. He's very focused, as is Benny the Butcher, who I've always enjoyed features from as well. He seems right at home here. It's short, it's sweet, it's great. And I have a lot of the same feelings on Smoke Break Dance featuring JID. This beat, the production, it is all immaculate. And this is one of very few tracks on this album that has Mick break into that lower register, you know, go for that laid back, hazy, you know, delivery that he started out in the game with. And honestly, he does it so little on this album, like when he breaks it out on here, it's actually refreshing. It's really introspective, it's got a great hook to it, and JID, you know, the guy's killing it right now. His feature is awesome. While far from perfect, I think that Mick is really doing great strides to, just as far as my taste goes, get back on track. But there definitely still is some room to grow. There's definitely some awkward moments. 007 is certainly one of them. And what's frustrating is the tracks that I don't like on here, 9 times out of 10, I can still really cling to something about it. Like on 007, this track here, this beat and the production, I swear it may just be my favorite beat on this entire tape. It's so dense, it is so heavy, and the floating sax in the background is great. But Mick's performance here, this is not his A game. This is actually really phoned in, shockingly so. And Pasta is just, oh my god, it's such a letdown on all angles. Beat-wise, once again, this is really interesting stuff, and the production is great, but then we have mixed bars on this track, which are so freaking corny. Like, I don't know when this shift happens, but like instantly I'm like back in the days of the Circus EP. Just what a massive letdown. I have a lot of the same feelings on Mop as well. Once again, the beat is great, the production is great, the backing vocals are great, and Mick's performance, it's actually not that bad. He's very focused, he just sounds so icy cold on this beat, but lyrically, this is phoned in once again. And I just feel like I could look at so many other tracks on this album and be like, this is so much better. It's a good album from Mick. It's probably his best stuff in a while, at least as far as, you know, this channel's concerned. There's a lot of good stuff on here, and he definitely is getting back on track. Like 2004, this track is freaking heavy, Mick's performance is freaking aggressive. Beat is icy cold, Mick is just sounding monstrous, but once again, what brings this track together is the guy's got a lot of things to say, and he has not stepped away from his songwriting. I mean, this track, once again, it's a minute and 20 seconds, but it's spicy and it's memorable. And Roy G. Biv may just be the most, I don't know, this track gives me hope for his future more than anything else on this album. This is the most warped and psychedelic beat on this entire album. The experimental production is really, really good. And Mick's bars here that go into his color theory, that's an album that I wouldn't mind listening to. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This is just a really super good conscious hip-hop tune with some really raw performances. Farm to Table is really cool. I mean, this beat is just so slick. I mean, it's just so warped once again. The production's super out there. Mick's really aggressive also. And Vic Mensa, who I've enjoyed 0 projects from, actually does a really great feature here. And Guapanese, I've enjoyed it since it dropped as a single. It's got that dark, rainy day sound to it. This would have been right at home on the new Billy Woods album. And Mick's performance here is one of his most dramatic. It's a refreshing sound for Mick. So much of this album is. And it's not perfect. Yeah, there's some pretty dull moments where he phones in some really corny lyrics. And this thing's really short. Probably too short for its own good at times. However, I have not personally enjoyed a Mick Jenkins project like this probably as much since The Waters. I think this is a really great palate cleanser for him. This is him, you know, trying out some new beats, just really staying focused, the songwriting's on point, and getting more aggressive, all while just, you know, offering up this really great palate cleanser of an album, and I honestly can't wait to see what he does next. For now, I'm feeling a strong 7 on this album, but let me know what you all think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.